How to manage conflict in the workplace with effective communication. Introduction. Conflict is an inevitable part of any workplace. In a corporate setting, people come from all walks of life, diverse backgrounds, and conflicting beliefs and ideologies. It is expected that such diversity will create conflicts, misunderstandings, and disagreements. But, is every conflict a bad thing? No, if handled well, conflicts can be incredibly productive and provide a chance for growth. An effective workplace conflict management strategy requires collaborative environments that facilitate open and honest communication. At the center of any such strategy lies effective communication. In this article, we will explore how to manage conflict in the workplace with effective communication. 1. Understanding the types of conflict. Before we delve into how to manage conflict, it's important to understand the different types of conflict. Experts have identified 5 main types of conflict. A. Task conflict. The most common type of conflict occurs when there are differences in opinions or ideas about work-related tasks or projects. B. Interpersonal conflict. This kind of conflict occurs when there are differences in personalities, values, or communication styles between 2 or more people. C. Process conflict. It arises due to differences in the approach or methods used to complete a task or project. D. Organizational conflict. This occurs when there are differences in how people perceive and implement the company's policies. E. External conflict. It arises when organizations have conflicts with external entities such as customers, suppliers, or regulators. 2. Identifying the root cause. The second step in managing conflicts involves identifying the root cause of the conflict. You can't solve a problem if you don't know what the problem is. Typically, the symptoms of the conflict are visible, but the underlying issue may not be so apparent. In such cases, you need to go deeper, ask questions, and gather all the facts and data necessary to understand the issue. The goal is to understand what's driving the conflict and to find a solution that addresses everyone's interests. 3. Listening with empathy. Listening with empathy is crucial in resolving conflicts. It involves putting yourself in the other person's shoes and understanding their perspective. This does not mean that you have to agree with the other person's viewpoint, but it means acknowledging their feelings and emotions. When people feel heard, understood, and valued, they become more receptive to finding a solution and less likely to dig their heels. Active listening requires paying attention, asking questions, and paraphrasing the other person's statements to ensure that you have understood correctly. 4. Choosing the right words. The words we use in our conversations can have a significant impact on the outcome of the conflict. It is important to choose words carefully to ensure that the message is conveyed effectively. The following tips can help you choose the right words. A. Avoid using accusatory language. Avoiding a language that blames, accuses, or undermines the other person's credibility can facilitate open communication. B. Use I statements. Using I statements instead of you statements can help avoid confrontations as they are less likely to be perceived as an attack. C. Avoid generalizations. Avoid making generalizations about the other person's behavior, as it could be perceived as stereotyping or undermining their credibility. D. Speak clearly and directly. Speak in a calm and collected tone, addressing the conflict head-on, and being clear about what you want to communicate. 5. Being respectful and professional. In a conflict situation, it's always important to remain respectful and professional and maintain a positive attitude. People are more likely to listen and cooperate when they are treated with respect. Even if you don't agree with the other person's viewpoint, it's important to acknowledge that they have a right to their opinion. A positive attitude and respect pave the way for effective communication, build trust, and improve collaboration. Remember, conflicts are natural and inevitable, but how we handle them is what matters. Resolving conflicts with respect, professionalism, and a positive attitude can lead to mutual understanding and a stronger working relationship. 6. Collaborating to find solutions. The most effective way to resolve conflicts is through collaboration and finding a mutually beneficial solution. When collaborators work together, they come up with solutions that take into account everyone's needs and interests. Collaborative problem solving involves brainstorming, identifying options, and choosing the best course of action. When people have a say in the decision-making process, they are more likely to be invested in the outcome. 7. Following up on agreements. After reaching a solution, it's vital to follow up on the agreements that were made. People are more likely to follow through on an agreement when they know that it will be monitored or reviewed. Skills of making fire, boiling water, and cooking in the mountains. Cooking in the mountains can be a great way to enjoy the outdoors. However, it is important to be prepared and have the necessary skills to ensure a safe and enjoyable experience. Here are some tips to help you master the skills of making fire, boiling water, and cooking in the mountains. Making fire. Making a fire is an essential skill for anyone who plans to cook in the mountains. The most important thing to remember is that you should always use a designated fire pit or fire ring. You should also make sure to bring the necessary materials, such as tinder, kindling, and wood. Once you have your materials, you can use a fire starter, such as a lighter or matches, to get the fire going. Boiling water. Boiling water is an important part of cooking in the mountains. You can use a pot or a canteen to boil water. Make sure to bring enough fuel, such as wood or charcoal, to keep the fire going. Additionally, you should bring a metal container to put the water in, as well as something to stir the water with. Cooking. Once you have your fire and boiling water, you can begin cooking. Make sure to bring the necessary ingredients and utensils for your meal. You can cook over the fire, or you can use a camping stove. Additionally, you should bring a pot or pan for boiling water or cooking food. Safety. Finally, it is important to remember to practice safety when cooking in the mountains. Make sure to keep the fire contained, and put it out before you leave. Additionally, you should never leave food out in the open, as this can attract wild animals. By following these tips, you can ensure that your cooking experience in the mountains is a safe and enjoyable one. Have a great time. When it comes to outdoor adventures in the mountains, knowing basic survival skills such as making fire, boiling water, and cooking can be crucial for a safe and enjoyable trip. In this article, we'll discuss these essential skills and provide some tips for mastering them in a mountain setting. Making fire. Fire is not only essential for warmth and light, but it can also be used for cooking food and purifying water. To make a fire in the mountains, you'll need dry kindling such as twigs and small branches, as well as larger logs for fuel. Here are some steps to follow. Choose a safe location for your fire, preferably in a fire pit or designated area. Gather dry kindling and larger logs. Build a small teepee-shaped structure with the kindling, leaving a small opening at the bottom for air circulation. Light the kindling with matches or a lighter, and blow gently on the flame to encourage it to spread to the larger logs. Once the fire is established, add additional logs as needed to keep it burning. Boiling water. In the mountains, water sources may not be safe to drink without being purified. Boiling water is a simple and effective way to kill bacteria and other pathogens. Here's how to do it. Find a heat-resistant container such as a metal pot or canteen cup. Fill the container with water from a clean, flowing source. Place the container on a heat source such as a camp stove or a fire, and bring the water to a rolling boil. Let the water boil for at least 1 minute to ensure that all the pathogens are killed. Remove the container from the heat and let it cool before drinking. Cooking. Cooking in the mountains can be a fun and rewarding experience, but it requires some preparation and planning. Here are some tips for cooking in a mountain setting. Plan your meals ahead of time and bring all the necessary ingredients and cooking utensils. Choose lightweight and compact cooking gear such as a portable stove, fuel, pots, pans, and utensils. Choose foods that are easy to prepare and don't require refrigeration such as pasta, rice, canned goods, and dried fruits and vegetables. Follow food safety guidelines to prevent foodborne illnesses by keeping your cooking area and utensils clean, cooking food to the right temperature, and storing food properly. Dispose of food waste properly by packing it out or burying it in a cat hole at least 200 feet away from water sources. In conclusion, knowing how to make fire, boil water, and cook in the mountains is essential for a safe and enjoyable trip. By following these basic survival skills, you can ensure that you have enough warmth, clean water, and nourishment to sustain you during your mountain adventure. Remember to always prioritize safety and respect the environment by following leave no trace principles and local regulations. With practice and experience, you can become a skilled and confident mountain chef, capable of preparing delicious and nutritious meals even in the most rugged and remote environments. Skills for making fire, boiling water, and cooking in the mountains. When venturing into the mountains, being able to start a fire, boil water, and cook food can make the difference. Between an enjoyable experience and hardship. Here are essential skills for fire, water, and food in the wild. Making fire allows you to boil water, cook food, stay warm, and dry wet clothes. Practice starting fires with matches and a lighter before your trip. You'll also need kindling, small sticks, and tinder, dry grass, bark, or paper to get the fire started. In the mountains, use dry wood from dead fallen trees for fuel. Split larger pieces for easier lighting. The teepee method is easiest, creating an upside-down cone of tinder, kindling, and larger wood. Boiling water. Boiling water purifies it, kills bacteria and parasites, and reduces the risk of illness. The easiest way is to fill a metal pot with water and place it over a wood fire. Boil water for at least 1 minute to purify it. Another option is a portable stove fueled by gas canisters. How to search and filter water in the mountains. Finding and filtering water in the mountains can be a challenge, especially in areas with limited access to clean water sources. However, with the right knowledge and equipment, it is possible to find and filter water in the mountains. The first step to finding water in the mountains is to locate a source. This can be done by looking for streams, rivers, or lakes in the area. If you are unable to locate a water source, you may need to dig a shallow well or collect rainwater. Once you have located a water source, it is important to make sure that it is safe to drink. The next step is to filter the water. This can be done in a variety of ways, such as using a water filter, boiling the water, or using a chemical treatment. It is important to use a method that is appropriate for the water source and the environment. Once you have filtered the water, it is important to store it in a clean container. This will help to ensure that the water remains safe to drink for an extended period of time. Finding and filtering water in the mountains can be a challenge, but with the right knowledge and equipment, it is possible to find and filter safe drinking water. By being prepared and informed, you can ensure a safe and enjoyable experience in the mountains. When exploring the mountains, finding and filtering water is a critical skill that can make or break your trip. Water sources in the mountains can range from streams and rivers to lakes and snowfields. However, not all water sources are safe to drink, and it is essential to find and filter water properly to avoid getting sick. Here are some tips on how to find and filter water in the mountains. Finding water sources. The first step in finding water in the mountains is to research your route and identify potential water sources along the way. Topographic maps and trail guides can be useful resources for locating streams, rivers, and lakes. When hiking, be on the lookout for signs of water, such as lush vegetation, animal tracks, and wet or damp ground. Look for water sources in valleys, where they are more likely to be found, and pay attention to the direction of the sun to determine where snowfields may be located. Filtering water. Even if a water source looks clean, it may still contain harmful bacteria and parasites that can cause illness. Filtering water is essential to remove these contaminants and make it safe to drink. There are several methods for filtering water in the mountains, including boiling, chemical treatment, and using a water filter. Boiling water is one of the most effective ways to kill bacteria and parasites. Heat the water to a rolling boil for at least 1 minute, or 3 minutes if you are at high altitude. Chemical treatment. Chemical treatments such as iodine or chlorine can also effectively kill bacteria and parasites in water. Follow the instructions on the product label carefully, as the dosage and treatment time can vary depending on the product. Water filters. Water filters are a convenient and effective way to remove contaminants from water. Look for a filter that is specifically designed for outdoor use and can filter out bacteria, parasites, and other impurities. Some filters also come with a pre-filter to remove larger debris before filtering the water. Before using a water filter, it is essential to clean and maintain it properly. Follow the manufacturer's instructions carefully, and backwash the filter regularly to ensure it continues to work effectively. Additional tips. Here are some additional tips to keep in mind when finding and filtering water in the mountains. Always carry enough water with you to get to the next water source. It's better to have too much water than not enough. Avoid drinking water from sources that are upstream from livestock or human activity, as these may contain harmful bacteria and parasites. Be aware of the potential risks of drinking water from snowfields, as it may contain pollutants and toxins that have accumulated over time. If you are unsure about the safety of a water source, it is always better to err on the side of caution and filter the water before drinking it. In conclusion, finding and filtering water in the mountains is an essential skill for any outdoor enthusiast. By researching your route, identifying potential water sources, and using effective filtering methods, you can stay hydrated and healthy while exploring the mountains. Remember to always carry enough water with you and be aware of the potential risks associated with drinking untreated water. By taking these precautions and using proper filtering methods, you can enjoy your mountain adventures with peace of mind and stay safe and healthy. Finding and obtaining clean water is essential for survival when hiking or backpacking in the mountains. But mountain streams and lakes may contain pathogens, pollutants, and sediments that require proper filtering and treatment before drinking. Here are the steps to locate and safely filter water for drinking and cooking in the mountains. Locate sources. Look for streams, rivers, ponds, and lakes. The smallest trickle of a stream often becomes a larger water source downstream. Mountain lakes are also common options. Avoid stagnant ponds, highly silted waters, and areas with potential contamination from humans or animals. Check for clarity. Cloudy, muddy, or discolored water is more likely to contain contaminants. Clear, odorless water is better. However, clarity alone is not a full indicator of safety. Let settle. Fill a container and allow particles to settle for at least 30 minutes. Decant the water, leaving any sediment behind. Settled water has less likelihood of clogging your filter. Filter the water. There are several effective methods. Chemical treatments like iodine or chlorine tablets kill microorganisms but leave behind altered taste and chemicals. Boiling is a simple and effective way to kill microbes but requires a heat source and time. Water must reach a full boil for 1 to 3 minutes depending on elevation. Gravity filters use a physical barrier to trap particles and microbes as water seeps through. These range from inexpensive options to high-end professional filters. Critical thinking skills. Explore different points of view and evaluate objectively. Critical thinking skills are essential for making informed decisions and solving complex problems. It involves the ability to think logically, analyze and evaluate information objectively, and draw reasoned conclusions. Developing critical thinking skills requires practice and patience, but it is an important skill that can be used in many aspects of life. What is critical thinking? Critical thinking is the ability to analyze, evaluate, and synthesize information in order to draw reasoned conclusions. It involves the ability to think logically and objectively, and to consider alternative perspectives. Critical thinking also involves the ability to identify and assess arguments and to recognize logical fallacies. Developing critical thinking skills. Developing critical thinking skills requires practice and patience. Here are some tips for developing your critical thinking skills. Read widely and critically. Reading is one of the best ways to develop your critical thinking skills. Read a variety of materials and consider different perspectives on the same topic. Ask questions. Asking questions is an important part of critical thinking. Ask yourself questions such as, what assumptions am I making? And what evidence do I have to support my argument? Challenge your beliefs. Challenge your own beliefs and assumptions and consider alternative perspectives. Explore different points of view. Explore different points of view and consider different perspectives on the same topic. Practice logical reasoning. Practice logical reasoning by examining the evidence and arguments for and against a particular position. Benefits of critical thinking. Developing critical thinking skills can have many benefits, including improved problem-solving skills. Critical thinking can help you identify and solve problems more effectively. Improved decision-making skills. Critical thinking can help you make better decisions by considering all the available evidence and options. Improved communication skills. Critical thinking can help you communicate more effectively by considering different perspectives and arguments. Improved creativity. Critical thinking can help you come up with creative solutions to problems. Conclusion. Critical thinking is an essential skill for making informed decisions and solving complex problems. Developing critical thinking skills requires practice and patience, but it is an important skill that can be used in many aspects of life. With the right mindset and dedication, you can develop your critical thinking skills and use them to your advantage. Critical thinking is a valuable skill that involves evaluating information and arguments objectively, exploring different points of view, and making informed decisions. It is essential in today's world, where we are constantly bombarded with information and opinions from various sources. In this article, we will discuss what critical thinking skills are, why they matter, and how to develop them. What are critical thinking skills? Critical thinking skills are the ability to analyze information, arguments, and evidence objectively, without bias or preconceptions. They involve evaluating the validity and reliability of sources, considering alternative perspectives, and making informed judgments based on evidence and logical reasoning. Why do critical thinking skills matter? Critical thinking skills are essential in today's world for several reasons. Making informed decisions. Critical thinking skills enable individuals to make informed decisions based on objective analysis and evaluation, rather than relying on emotions or biases. Problem solving. Critical thinking skills allow individuals to identify the root causes of problems and develop effective solutions. Effective communication. Critical thinking skills facilitate clear and effective communication, as individuals can articulate their ideas and arguments in a logical and convincing manner. Creativity. Critical thinking skills can foster creativity by encouraging individuals to consider multiple perspectives and think outside the box. How to develop critical thinking skills. Developing critical thinking skills requires practice and dedication. Here are some strategies for developing critical thinking skills. Question assumptions. Challenge assumptions and beliefs, both your own and those of others. Ask yourself why you think a certain way, and consider alternative viewpoints. Seek out diverse perspectives. Expose yourself to a range of perspectives and ideas, including those that may challenge your own beliefs. This can help you develop empathy and understanding for different viewpoints. Evaluate sources of information. Be critical of the information you consume and evaluate the credibility and reliability of sources. Consider the biases and motivations of the sources and whether they are supported by evidence. Apply logic and reasoning. Use logical reasoning and evidence-based arguments to support your ideas and evaluate the ideas of others. This involves identifying premises and conclusions, evaluating the strength of arguments, and detecting fallacies. Practice reflection. Take time to reflect on your own thought processes and decision making. Consider what biases or assumptions may have influenced your thinking and how you can improve in the future. Engage in problem-solving activities. Practice problem-solving activities that require critical thinking skills, such as puzzles, debates, or brainstorming sessions. Seek feedback. Ask others for feedback on your thinking and decision-making. This can help you identify blind spots and areas for improvement. In conclusion, critical thinking skills are essential for making informed decisions, solving complex problems, and effectively communicating ideas. Developing these skills requires practice, reflection, and a willingness to challenge assumptions and consider multiple perspectives. The art of small talk: how to make a great first impression. Small talk is an essential social skill and an art form that can set the tone for any conversation. Whether you are attending a networking event, meeting new people at a party, or simply running into someone on the street, making a good first impression is crucial. This impression is based on the initial conversation, and if you can master the art of small talk, you will be more likely to establish meaningful connections with those around you. So, what is small talk? Essentially, it is a conversation starter designed to establish rapport and find common ground between two people. It's not meant to be deep or meaningful, but rather a way to break the ice and feel more comfortable with one another. The goal is to create a relaxed and friendly atmosphere, establishing a foundation for more substantial conversations in the future. To make the best first impression and master the art of small talk, you need to consider a few essential strategies. By following these techniques, you'll be able to make a great first impression and forge connections that can last a lifetime. 1. Be genuine. Perhaps the most important aspect of small talk is to be authentic and genuine in your approach. Avoid being brusque or abrupt, and instead take the time to genuinely listen to the other person and show interest in what they have to say. Try to connect through common experiences or interests and look for areas of shared enthusiasm. 2. Start with a neutral topic. The key to successful small talk is to begin with a neutral conversation topic, such as the weather or a recent news event. These discussion topics are harmless and can allow you to quickly establish a sense of familiarity and rapport with the other person. It's important to avoid controversial topics, as these can quickly cause disagreements and tension. 3. Use open-ended questions. When engaging in small talk, it's important to use open-ended questions as these can lead to more extended conversations. Avoid asking yes or no questions, and instead inquire about the other person's thoughts, experiences, and opinions. Questions like "What do you think of the event so far?" or "What has been your favorite part of the conference?" provide opportunities for the other person to expand on their ideas. 4. Listen and show interest. One of the essential components of small talk is to be a good listener. Engage with the other person and respond to their comments thoughtfully. Try to ask questions that show interest in hearing more about their experiences and knowledge and show that you are interested in learning more about them. 5. Be confident. Confidence is key when it comes to small talk. Even if you're feeling nervous, it's important to project confidence and put on a friendly, engaging manner. Smile, maintain eye contact, and project an open body language to establish a comfortable and relaxed atmosphere. Confidence is not only attractive, but it's also contagious, and by projecting it, you can encourage others to feel at ease. 6. Keep it light. Small talk is not the place for heavy or deep conversations. Because you're trying to establish a connection and create a comfortable atmosphere, it's important to keep the tone light and avoid heavy or serious discussions. Make use of humor and be positive, even if the conversation is more serious, to keep it a positive experience. 7. Find common ground. One of the core elements of small talk is the ability to find common ground with the person you are speaking to. Whether it's a shared interest, knowledge of a particular topic, or common experience, it's important to look for these areas of similarity and build upon them. By establishing common ground, you're more likely to develop a connection and potentially even forge a friendship. 8. Be respectful. Finally, it's important to remember that small talk is about creating a positive experience for both parties. Avoid interrupting, monopolizing the conversation, or displaying aggressive or rude behavior. Instead, be respectful and allow the other person to share their thoughts and opinions. By doing so, you'll establish a positive foundation for future interactions. Mastering the art of small talk may seem daunting, but by following these simple tips, you can set yourself up for conversations that are engaging and enjoyable. By being authentic, starting with neutral topics, using open-ended questions, listening and showing interest, being confident, keeping things light, finding common ground, and being respectful, you can establish meaningful connections and create a positive first impression that will last a lifetime. So go ahead and try it out. You'll be amazed at how much impact a little small talk can have. In addition to the essential strategies outlined above, there are a few things to keep in mind when engaging in small talk. First, it's important to keep the other person's comfort level in mind. If they seem uncomfortable with a particular topic, it's best to steer the conversation in a different direction. Additionally, it's important to be aware of cultural differences and avoid topics that could be considered insensitive or offensive. How to build a tent in the mountains. Building a tent in the mountains can be a great way to enjoy the outdoors and have an adventure. However, it is important to know the basics of how to set up a tent in order to ensure a safe and successful camping trip. Here are some tips for building a tent in the mountains. Choose the right tent. The first step in building a tent in the mountains is to choose the right tent. When selecting a tent, consider the size of the group, the weather conditions, and the terrain. A 3-season tent is usually the best choice for mountain camping, as it is designed to withstand wind and rain. It is also important to choose a tent with a high waterproof rating, as rain and snow can be common in the mountains. Prepare the site. Once you have chosen the right tent, it is time to prepare the site. Start by clearing away any debris and rocks, as these can be uncomfortable to sleep on. It is also important to check for any potential hazards, such as dead branches or large roots. If the ground is uneven, use a shovel to level it out. Assemble the tent. Now that the site is prepared, it is time to assemble the tent. Start by laying out the tent and all its components. Make sure to read the instructions carefully, as this will help ensure that the tent is set up correctly. Once the tent is assembled, stake it into the ground. Set up the rainfly. The rainfly is an important part of any tent, as it provides additional protection from the elements. Start by laying out the rainfly and attaching it to the tent poles. Make sure to stake the corners of the rainfly into the ground, as this will help keep it secure. Add accessories. Once the tent is set up, it is time to add any accessories. This could include a tarp, a ground sheet, or a footprint. These accessories will help protect the tent from the elements and keep it clean. Test the tent. Before you go to sleep, it is important to test the tent. Make sure that all the stakes are secure, and that the tent is free of any potential hazards. It is also a good idea to check the weather forecast, as this will help you plan for any potential storms. Building a tent in the mountains can be a great way to enjoy the outdoors. However, it is important to know the basics of how to set up a tent in order to ensure a safe and successful camping trip. By following these tips, you can be sure to have a comfortable and enjoyable camping experience. Camping in the mountains can be an incredible way to reconnect with nature and enjoy some fresh air. One of the most important things to consider when camping in the mountains is your shelter. Building a tent in the mountains can seem daunting, but with a few tips and tricks, it can be a straightforward and rewarding experience. In this article, we will go over how to build a tent in the mountains. Choose the right tent. Before you begin building your tent, it's essential to choose the right one for the environment you will be camping in. Look for a tent that is designed for windy conditions and has sturdy poles to withstand gusts of wind. Ensure that the tent is waterproof and has a rainfly to keep you dry in case of rain or snow. Additionally, consider the size and weight of the tent, as you'll likely need to carry it up the mountain with you. Find a good spot. Choosing a good spot to set up your tent is crucial. Look for a flat area that is sheltered from the wind, and try to avoid setting up camp in a low-lying area where cold air can settle. Additionally, be mindful of any potential hazards such as falling rocks or trees and ensure that you are not setting up camp on top of any fragile or protected plants. Prepare the ground. Once you've found a suitable spot, it's time to prepare the ground. Clear away any debris or sharp rocks that could damage your tent and make sure the ground is level. If the ground is particularly rough or rocky, consider using a ground sheet or tarp to protect the bottom of your tent. Set up the tent. Before setting up your tent, familiarize yourself with the instructions and make sure you have all the necessary parts. Begin by laying out the tent and securing the corners with stakes or rocks. Then, insert the tent poles and attach them to the corners of the tent. Finally, attach the rainfly if necessary and stake it down. Secure the tent. Once your tent is set up, it's important to secure it properly. Make sure all the stakes are firmly in the ground and that the guy lines are taut. Consider using extra guy lines if you are camping in particularly windy conditions. Additionally, ensure that the rainfly is securely attached and covers the entire tent. Make it comfortable. Now that your tent is set up, it's time to make it comfortable. Add a sleeping pad or air mattress for insulation and comfort, and use a warm sleeping bag to keep you cozy at night. Consider bringing a small camping chair or stool for sitting outside your tent, and use a headlamp or lantern for lighting inside the tent. In conclusion, building a tent in the mountains can be a fun and rewarding experience, but it's important to take the time to choose the right tent, find a suitable spot, prepare the ground, set up the tent properly, secure it, and make it comfortable. With proper planning and attention to detail, you can have a comfortable and safe camping experience in the mountains. Remember to always leave no trace, pack out all your trash, and respect the environment around you. Happy camping! Setting up camp in the wilderness away from civilization does not get more exciting than pitching your tent in the middle of a towering mountain range. However, setting up a tent on uneven ground while battling the elements requires proper planning and technique. First aid and first aid skills in the case of an emergency in the mountains. First aid and first aid skills are essential in the case of an emergency in the mountains. Knowing how to respond to an emergency situation in the mountains can be the difference between life and death. In this article, we will discuss the importance of first aid and first aid skills in the case of an emergency in the mountains. First aid is the initial medical assistance given to an injured or ill person. It is important to be prepared for any emergency situation, and having a basic knowledge of first aid is essential. Knowing how to perform basic first aid procedures such as CPR, wound care, and splinting can be critical in the case of an emergency in the mountains. It is also important to have a basic understanding of medical terminology and how to identify and treat common injuries and illnesses. In addition to having a basic knowledge of first aid, it is also important to have the proper equipment. Having a first aid kit that is properly stocked with supplies such as bandages, gauze, antiseptic, and scissors is essential. It is also important to have a working knowledge of how to use the items in the kit. In the case of an emergency in the mountains, it is important to be aware of the potential hazards. Knowing how to identify and respond to potential hazards such as avalanches, rock falls, and inclement weather is essential. It is also important to be aware of the potential for hypothermia and frostbite, and to know how to respond to these conditions. Finally, it is important to know how to evacuate an injured person from the mountains. Knowing how to safely transport an injured person from the mountains can be the difference between life and death. First aid and first aid skills are essential in the case of an emergency in the mountains. Knowing how to respond to an emergency situation in the mountains can be the difference between life and death. It is important to be prepared for any emergency situation, and having a basic knowledge of first aid is essential. Having the proper equipment and a working knowledge of how to use it is also essential. Knowing how to identify and respond to potential hazards such as avalanches, rock falls, and inclement weather is also essential. Finally, it is important to know how to safely transport an injured person from the mountains. By being prepared and informed, you can ensure a safe and enjoyable experience in the mountains. First aid skills are essential for anyone planning to explore the mountains. Accidents can happen at any time, and being prepared with the knowledge and skills to handle an emergency can save lives and prevent serious injuries. In this article, we will discuss the importance of first aid in the mountains and some essential first aid skills that every adventurer should know. Why first aid is important in the mountains. The mountains present unique challenges and hazards that can increase the risk of accidents and injuries. Hiking trails can be narrow and rocky, with steep drop-offs and unstable terrain. Weather conditions can change rapidly and unexpectedly, and altitude sickness can be a significant risk at higher elevations. In the event of an accident or injury, emergency services may be far away, and it may take time for help to arrive. This is why having basic first aid skills is crucial for anyone planning to explore the mountains. Knowing how to provide immediate care and stabilize a patient can make all the difference in the outcome of an emergency. Essential first aid skills for the mountains. Here are some essential first aid skills that every adventurer should know. CPR and AED use, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, CPR and automated external defibrillator, AED, use are essential skills that can save lives in the event of cardiac arrest. In the mountains, where emergency services may be far away, knowing how to perform CPR and use an AED can be particularly important. Wound care. In the mountains, injuries such as cuts, scrapes, and blisters can occur frequently. Knowing how to clean and dress wounds properly can prevent infections and promote healing. It is essential to carry a first aid kit with supplies such as antiseptic solution, sterile gauze, adhesive bandages, and medical tape. Splinting. Injuries such as sprains, fractures, and dislocations can occur in the mountains, and knowing how to splint an injured limb can help stabilize the injury and prevent further damage. Improvised splints can be made using materials such as sticks, trekking poles, or even a rolled-up jacket. Hypothermia and frostbite. Hypothermia and frostbite are significant risks in the mountains, particularly in cold and wet conditions. Recognizing the symptoms and providing proper care, such as rewarming and shelter, can prevent serious complications. Altitude sickness. Altitude sickness can occur at higher elevations and can cause symptoms such as headache, dizziness, and nausea. Knowing how to recognize and treat altitude sickness, such as rest and hydration, can prevent serious complications such as pulmonary or cerebral edema. Communication and emergency response. In the event of an emergency, communication and emergency response skills are crucial. Knowing how to call for help, provide accurate location information, and perform basic search and rescue techniques can make all the difference in the outcome of an emergency. Training and preparation. While learning first aid skills is essential, it is also important to receive proper training and preparation before heading into the mountains. Taking a first aid course, such as a wilderness first aid or wilderness first responder course, can provide in-depth training and prepare you for a variety of emergency situations. In addition to training, it is essential to carry a well-stocked first aid kit with you on all mountain adventures. The kit should include items such as bandages, gauze, medical tape, antiseptic solution, pain relievers, and emergency blankets. It is also important to familiarize yourself with the contents of your first aid kit and know how to use each item. Communication is also key in the mountains. Before heading out, let someone know your itinerary and expected return time. Carry a charged cell phone or satellite communication device, and know how to call for help in case of an emergency. Conclusion. In summary, first aid skills are essential for anyone planning to explore the mountains. The unique challenges and hazards of mountain environments increase the risk of accidents and injuries, and knowing how to provide immediate care and stabilize a patient can make all the difference in the outcome of an emergency. Essential first aid skills for the mountains include CPR and AED use, wound care, splinting, hypothermia and frostbite care, altitude sickness recognition and care, and communication and emergency response skills. Proper training, preparation, and carrying a well-stocked first aid kit are also crucial for mountain safety.